This is the World Satsanga on the 19th of September 2015. Okay, so we've got Mo and Jeremy, John, RJ, Mirella, Chris, Yvonne, Ulla and William. So what I'm going to do is just go over the agenda for today, and where are we? There's the agenda. So letting the system stabilise, which is the normal state of affairs. Then we're going to go through how past lives affect our health. I've actually put 20 minutes down for this, but I'm not sure it'll take 20 minutes, so we'll see how things go. And then we've got participants' questions, and as usual, others put some very good questions in there. And interestingly enough, a long time ago, when I was doing my dissertation for finishing my healing course back in 2005, I wrote a dissertation called "What is God?" And as a prelude of, no doubt, to the history of God, I would suspect. But within that, I went through some of the answers to the questions that Ulla has asked. However, looking at, well, I thought I had anyway, looking at the documents, because I don't throw anything away, I always store everything I've done. Looking at the question, it's very much a, shall I say, a very religiously influenced response, I think, here, based upon the information I've got from, I suppose, the internet and the Bible and everything else at that time, rather than any channeled information. So what I'm going to try to do here is, if I can, try and mix the two together, but I'm getting the feeling that I can't do that as such. Okay. So I might just put that to one side. If I get a chance, I might see if I can cut and paste some stuff and put it into the instant messaging service as we're going through. But let's just have a quick check with you all, see who's there. So Marnie's not managed to get on, so maybe she's stuck somewhere or got some other stuff to do. What I can do, actually, I can send you a PDF of the whole thing. It's if Ulysses just asked the question, or send us the whole document as a PDF. Yes, I can do that. Okay. Right. So John's on a tight schedule. He's catching a plane somewhere, so that's okay. So just dial off when you can, John. Don't worry about it. We'll send you the recording anyway. It's fantastic. You're able to log in, obviously from an airport, which is a wonderful thing to do with technology these days. So I will send a PDF to you all. I'll save this as a PDF and send it all to you. That's no problem at all. And I would guess that if anybody wants to listen to the Satsanga from the internet, that I can put it somewhere, or I can attach it upon request as part of a link on the blog. Right then. So, very first thing is looking through what we've got here, the agenda. And again, the first part of it is how past lives affect our health. One of the things that I've noticed, and other healers have noticed, certainly in the last, I suppose, quarter of a decade, is that people carry across from their previous lives what could arguably be called a hang-up. And that hang-up is the intensity of certain parts of that past life, either from the way we've lived or the way we've been treated, or more normally in the way we've actually died, or the human vehicle is demised. And so some of those aspects are brought along with us. And there are many people who have phobias of fire, phobias of being outdoors, phobias of water, phobias of heights. And there's no real medical or psychological reason that describes that, and so it's clearly something else which is happening. Now, Mo's just asked a question. I was told that you can carry your relatives hang up as well. That's if you're helping them out. If you carry your relatives hang-ups or your relatives' past life issues, if you want to call it that, that's because you're helping them out to shift it. Now, you're not helping them out as a relative, you're helping them out as another incarnate being, another aspect, and maybe you've got the opportunity to do something which severs a link for them as well. And it is difficult to do, specifically because there is an issue with the link which isn't specifically linked to you, the individual. And so what happens is it's difficult to spot where the link is because it's basically not there. It's something you're dealing with which doesn't have a link with a particular life that you've done yourself. So we have different ways of the human form demising. Various different ways, from automotive accidents to plane crashes to disease to old age to being murdered to being lost to being exposed to other elements, to all of these different things, and also the way we're treated, as I said before, how we're treated affects us as well. And John was just saying, often in sessions ancestors come in to be healed as well. Yeah, I mean, the link with the ancestors bit is because we do choose to work with certain physical family environments, and so we can, at certain times in our incarnation, because we know what's going to happen at certain points before we become incarnate, because when we become incarnate we start to lose that memory set, of course, because as a result of the lower frequencies, come to an agreement with another aspect to say, look, I know that at a certain point in time I'm going to need to go to be healed with a certain type of healer, and then that will allow your problem to be healed through me, and that happens as part of a contract that we have between other aspects that we may have worked with in the past, either as a family member or in other incarnations where we're not family members but we're just working together. And so in the event that we've worked together with a particular aspect a long time, and that particular aspect would be for instance, a sympathetic soul to us, we would say, as part of our service to them, and therefore part of the opportunity for them to gain, to remove that karmic link, for instance, because it will be a karmic link of some sort, because anything that attracts us or keeps us thinking about the earth plane is a karmic link, a negative karmic link, if you want to call it that, needs to be removed so we can progress, and it stops us from evolving. And so if we can, as a sympathetic soul, when we are incarnate in the right environment and have the right opportunity presented to us, sever that link for them, we can be of service in that way, and that link is severed. And so sometimes we do get ancestors coming through to be healed as well. But in essence, everything we do in our previous lives can be carried across, and if it's been particularly traumatic, for instance, or of particular note to us, it can and will affect us in this particular life. Now, although I've mentioned health here as one particular function of what our past lives can do for us, we can come into a life with a skill set, for instance, that is carried across. We may have decided that we want to maintain a skill set that we had in a previous existence, and so that previous existence may well be that we were, for instance, say, a good doctor, a good architect, a good lawyer, a good engineer, a good salesperson, a good driver, a good drummer, a good musician. In all of these different things, they can also be part of what we pull across. And so that may affect our life in a different way in terms of how we are, how we incarnate, and how we can present ourselves and how we learn. And just it is a slight digression here, but there's a lot of children being born, and there's lots of them on the internet now who are really very, very good at a certain skill set, and they haven't had the exposure to that skill set that would enable us to describe why that child has got the skill. They are a little bit like Mozart's, for instance, or other individuals who are virtuosos in the first 4 years of their life, for instance, and they can do things like play the drums, they can play instruments, they can understand computers, technologies, mathematics, languages that are well beyond their years on Earth. And so this is another way that our past lives can affect us. We choose to bring in certain skill sets. But going back to the health side of things, when we do pull in different forms of demise with us, that demise can stay dormant. The function of it can stay dormant for a long, long time, or it can be with us from the very start of the new incarnation. And so we have to be very, as healers, for instance, we have to be very, very aware of the possibility that a particular life may well be affecting us physiologically when there's no basis for that physiological issue. I had an Aikido student who died of a congenital heart problem. I think back in 2003, 2004, and the whole family had got this problem, and that you just knew that they were all going to be gone before they were 55, for instance, because that individual I'm talking about died at 50. Well, he ascended at 50, and you do wonder to yourself whether that particular, and I haven't plugged into him to understand it, but whether that particular individual had brought across something that meant that particular form of medical dysfunction that caused his congenital heart disease had been carried across from a different existence. And it could well be that the type of foods he was eating in his previous incarnation was such that they cause heart disease. We know that certain fatty tissues can do that. So maybe he was living in an environment where the only thing he got to eat was fatty foods, and therefore the energy associated with that food would have caused the early demise of his form, his human vehicle, his human body. At that point, and maybe the energy associated with that was brought across to this particular life, for instance. We also have other things that affect us about our past life and our health, such as we may, for instance, have been involved in a war, for instance, and specifically what we tend to find, well, certainly within the Barbara Brennan scheme of things, there's a lot of, shall I say, direction to look for energetic residuals that were stuck within the auric layers, and the other energetic templates that create the human form. And there's a number of times I've seen things like either swords or spears or bits of shrapnel, for instance. Swords and spears may have been the way that, or even bullets, for instance, may have been the way that particular individual had demised in its previous existence. But also it could be things like being involved in a plane crash, where you've got, for instance, he was a fighter pilot in a previous, and he's bounced back into an incarnation. He's done a back-to-back incarnation. You can find things like shrapnel from an explosion, or from simply a high-impact crash that are part of the energy system. And in instances, we see people who've got bad back problems associated with it. They can't move their neck, for instance. They've always got pain in the chest. And as soon as you remove the energy associated with that way that they previously demised, such as by actually visualising removing a sword or a spear or a piece of shrapnel or a bullet, or anything else that's relative to their previous their life and how it ended, you find that they become much more integrated, harmonious with this particular existence, and they don't demonstrate that illness again. it goes away very, very quickly. And this is something that also that is used in Dolores Cannon's QHHT work as well, where they go back down to past lives as well to sever the links without past life to affect healing on this side. John's just added when he was in his early 20s, he never thought he would I would live past 30 because I died so often at 30. Okay, good. When I reached 28, I realised that now he's a different, and I started being more present in this one. Yeah, he just lost contact a moment. So we managed to get the text there, John. So it's okay. But basically, you can have what can be classified as being a certain function of normality creep into to your lives, where you expect to go at a certain time, because either you've gone at that time on these different lives, whether it's been by design or whether it's been by accident, but there's a residual memory there which states that I'm not going to live past a certain date or a certain age because I've never lived past this age before. And it could well be that a lot of incarnations have been in periods of time on Earth where medical support has been non-existent, for instance, like in the Middle Ages or the Dark Ages, and therefore, by the age of say 30, 35, you were an old person, and therefore that was a long time to live. And so the residual memory of knowing that 30, 35, 40 was the time you went would be carried across to each life as you go through them. And when you get to this particular life now, they're compounded, and therefore, rather than it being, I think I'm going to go at 30 or 35, it's an almost definite thought process that's there, and that definite thought process can, if not checked and sorted out and removed by flicking or changing the state of the psycho-spiritual switches, can actually be perpetuated and create the dysfunction and these disharmonies within the energies associated with this particular issue, and it can affect physical disharmony in a particular organ that is associated with, and that particular organ could be a cause of failure as well. So it's not just specifically associated with the way of demise, but it could be the repeatability of a certain method of demise as well that causes problems. And so we have other things as well where, depending upon how we work with those previous lives, it affects us in this instance. Now, Chris has just asked, how would poisoning affect one? You would always be ill. If you had a number of lives, or you carried across the energy associated with poisoning, you would always be ill. You would never be feeling totally well. You'd always be like the sickly child, for instance. You'd have a phobia about certain foods, those foods that may have been the result of the poisoning, or the foods that may have contained a poison if you were poisoned by somebody assassinating you, for instance. I mean, for instance, Chris just said ink there. In the old days, the monks used to, and the scribes used to write books with ink that was basically poisonous. And one of the ways that they used to sort of work with that ink would be to lick the nib of their quill, and the ink would go onto their tongue, and the tongue would be the way into the body that the ink would have as a poison to poison the body. And so again, it would be the same thing. The individual would feel unwell all of the time. That's the way that particular way worked. So I'm just okay. Ulla's just said, if all lives are simultaneous in the now, how can they affect this lifetime in a synchron? If all lives are simultaneous in the now, how can they affect this lifetime in a sequential, parallel fashion? They don't, actually. This is why they are parallel. This is the thing, you see. with some individuals who are sensitive enough, or have the functionality associated with being able to be in contact with a parallel existence, then there may well be the opportunity for those parallel existences to affect our health and how it affects our health and how it affects our work here. But in essence, the parallel conditions are there because they create an individual direction that is created as a result of us having a choice. And so, if we have, for instance, a number of different experiences that are in different event spaces that we create, so different parallel conditions, then the aspect that is being us as the incarnate aspect of our true energetic self won't necessarily, unless it's got this function as I've just explained, experience or be exposed to the essence of a particular existence. The true energetic self would do. Now, and I'm just being told right now that if the true energetic self had experienced a certain function or certain existence through its aspects, that it wants to, shall I say, dissolve or terminate, then it can, through one of its aspects, I'm going to use the word inject, the energies associated with a particular experience that is a hang-up with one of its aspects. And so it could be that a particular aspect that has the hang-up won't necessarily need to dissolve that hang-up or remove that karmic link. It could be done by the true energy itself, by using another aspect that it's got projected. The other thing is that most of these hang-ups are perpetuated if the aspect remains projected from the true energetic self and is not absorbed, or the aspects don't enter into a form of communion with the true energetic self, that results in the total dissolution of the aspect. That meaning that it goes into communion, and goes into full communion rather than any of the individualized forms of communion. And so it's a function of that as well. Generally, I'm being told those aspects that remain projected because they're doing a number of different incarnations or back-to-back incarnations are those ones that will carry across issues from one life to another life, and that they try to remove that link by going through the incarnation process. Now, the thing is to note that these past lives and the links with the past lives that get carried across from life to life are a karmic function. And by that I mean they are something which needs to be dealt with in the physical. And so it's not something we can deal with in the energetic, it's something where we need to be exposed to it again and therefore correct that issue whilst in the physical. So it's a little bit like being the rat in the maze. We've got to the centre of the maze once, or we've experienced how to get there, and then we're taken away from the maze, and then we have to do it again to see if we can do it again, basically, without influence. And so we do incarnate again just to remove karmic influence, and some of that karmic influence is in fact the links between past lives. I've no doubt, Bill's just said here, for example, did Katie Stennell in San Francisco choose or agree to be shot? To us it looks random prior to incarnation, for whatever reason. Yes. Let's have a look at that. Right, that particular method of ascension, so to speak, ascension being the removal of the aspect from the incarnate vehicle, for her was one of her termination junctures. That means that the aspect of the soul that was in the body, that was Katie Steinel, wanted to leave the body, and that was one of the junctures that was in place for her. So when she was shot, although it looked random, it was actually part of her life plan, and part of that part of the life plan allowed her to leave that incarnation early. And you're only allowed to leave the incarnation early if you feel that you've experienced enough of that incarnation to make it worthwhile, and there's no longer a desire to stay in the incarnation to maximise the opportunity whilst incarnate. If that makes any sense at all. It's a difficult process. It's a difficult process. Okay. Well, John's still typing at the moment, but I'm just having a look at the time here, and I'll answer John's question. I feel when we're going through these series of questions that Ula's got here. So I'm just going to have to keep going backwards and forwards to make sure I don't miss John's question coming through. Ah, okay. Okay. Right. So let's have a look at these questions here. Ula's focused on. Oops. Right. Ula's focused on the angelic realm, so to speak. Angels. Since I mentioned them in the Origin Speaks. Okay. And she said, do these maintenance entities exist in a hierarchy of 9 orders of angels as described by many people? Such as the angels, archangels, principles, which is the lower triad, classic to humans, powers, virtues, dominions in the middle triad, and the thrones, cherubim, and seraphim in the upper triad, closest to God. These are, in my understanding, the names that are given here are a function of the description that mankind has used to identify the types of rapture that these entities experience in the frequencies that they're working in. Rapture being the state of bliss, if you want to call it that. And so they are, depending upon what they're doing and their evolutionary level, they would be experiencing a certain level of rapture, or a certain level of bliss. Yeah, Chris is saying apples, pears, and oranges. Yeah, same sort of thing. So in essence, it's a case of depending upon how close you are to being in a state of recommunion with Source, and you are a maintenance entity, and by that I mean you're looking after the structure of the maintenance of the structure of the multiverse and those environments that support it, and you're also looking at trying to improve its evolutionary efficiency. And depending upon your level of evolution, you may have other entities that help you, and therefore that gives you a level of authority, so to speak. So maybe a throne might have power over a power, or virtue, or dominion. And the same would be a cherubim or a seraphim. And the throne may have a group of powers and then archangels below them, for instance, those sorts of things. It's a very human way to think about it in terms of a structure. But my understanding is it's to do with the level of frequential experience associated with being at these levels. So each of these different entities are a different form of entity in terms of what they are. They're still true energetic selves, the same as us, but they've chosen to go into to be purely of service. And so from that respect, they will have a different level of evolutionary level, and again, because of that evolutionary level, the frequencies that they're associated with will give them a certain level of beingness, and that beingness, that bliss state associated with it is what we call rapture. So there'll be different levels of rapture, so to speak. There's other ways of saying it, but it might get more difficult to broadcast. But basically, this is to do with it. So, next question is, were these angels created by Source as different types from the start, or did they slowly evolve from one type of angel to another during the evolutionary cycle? All entities were created simultaneously by Source. That is, all entities that exist in this current multiversal environment, within the environment that is our Source entity, were created simultaneously. Every entity is as old as each other. Every entity has a role to play in terms of gathering the evolutionary content. that is going to benefit not only themselves but also their creator, and which is the source, and our creator's creator, which is the origin. And so entities can and do choose a path. They choose to go into the evolutionary cycle, which means that they want to experience all the different frequencies associated with the multiverse, and that includes the need to incarnate to experience the lowest frequencies in its most profound way possible. Whereas others decide they want to assist those that want to go into the evolutionary cycle, so they end up being of service. Those individuals who go of service don't actively seek evolutionary progression, but they do get evolutionary progression as a result of assisting those who are in the evolutionary cycle, purely as a function of, shall I say, it's a spiritual tithe, if you want to call it that. As each entity gains evolutionary content, they give some of that to those entities that help them, and that's the guide and the helpers, and also those other entities that have helped maintain the structure of the multiverse, and therefore the evolutionary efficiency of that part of the multiverse that they're existing in as a being at this moment in time, at this juncture. So, for instance, if an aspect is incarnating into the Earth plane or another particular environment within the physical universe, there will be a number of these different entities which have decided to, actively chosen to, work in that particular area to support those entities that are incarnating into or manifesting their sentience by using the body of energies they were given by their true energetic self, or by being allowed to commandeer some energies as well to create a body of energy. And so it's basically they evolve, but they have a choice to at the start of they had a choice at the start of their creation to be able to go into this particular type of existence. Now it is known that entities do swap sometimes. They do go from one role to another role. They generally have to, though, go back into their primary role or their first role before they recommune with Source. So in effect, if we were, for instance, one of the entities that wanted to be of service, that we ended up being an angel, for instance, or a virtue, and we decided we want to experience the evolutionary cycle, we can go into the evolutionary cycle. But when we finish the evolutionary cycle, we have to go back into that function we chose upon just after our creation, before we go back into communion with Source. Okay. Right, next one, 3. Do different types of angels have a different appearance and functions in the physical universe, or the rest of the multiverse, or can any angel take any appearance anywhere? None of the entities that are classified as being in the hierarchy described, which is those closest to humans are angels, archangels, principalities. Those in the middle triad are powers, virtues, dominions. And those in the upper triad, which are closest to God, thrones, cherubim and seraphim, actually have a form of any sort. They are purely energetic and don't need a form. We would, if we were observing them with our spiritual eye or our third eye, see them as being probably a ball of energy. Although we're more likely to really experience them in a state of knowingness or beingness rather than an actual physical representation of what they are. John's just asked a question actually. So a quick look. Doesn't the perception depend on the observer? Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, because I was about to go into that role, into that route. Sorry, not the role, because most of the individual descriptions of some of these beings is based upon the uneducated reports of the observer. And so, if you think about an angel or an archangel or an entity that is helping us, who is modifying the environment that we're working in, and therefore wants to check what it's done, it may decide to manifest itself momentarily to experience what it's done from the perspective of the physicality. of that environment it's worked with. So it may want to experience the environment that it's modified from the perspective of an incarnate individual. So it can create an incarnate body. And so when some of these entities manifest themselves, they have to put a body of energy around themselves to protect themselves from the lower frequencies, so they can still maintain their functionality. And some of these energies would look as if they are wavy energies. They might look like mixture of, for instance, a rainbow with, when we see heat rising, for instance, it sort of makes things look a bit wobbly, things look out of focus. And so, from the perspective of, let's say, from a biblical sense of point of view, an uneducated goat herd, it may look as if this entity is humanoid, because it might be a certain size and shape, and the energies are rotating or pulsating or radiating around it may look like wings. And so it'll be a case of, oh, I've just seen something with wings, and therefore the description is just a human being with wings. But these days, because we're more educated, we have a bigger problem, because depending upon our education, we have a different set of or a different vocabulary, a different dictionary that we can use to interpret things. And so, as with these Traversing of Frequencies workshops, those who've done it, where we sometimes use our total vocabulary from our current incarnation as our vocabulary, and that includes our experiences, our emotions, our thoughts, our expressions, and everything else, to explain something that we've not seen before. It's translated, but inaccurately. This is what happens to us. And so, if we've been educated into saying that this is going to be this, then when we experience what it is, we use a translation medium which gives us what we want. And so we can, in essence, see something and then say, oh, that must be a leprechaun, or that must be a pixie, or that must be a fairy, or that must be an angel, because of what we've been indoctrinated, what we've been educated to think in terms of. If we don't think in terms of anything, we'll see as it's supposed to be seen, or not at all. And that's what happens. So the perception does depend upon the observer, definitely. Moses just said, so they can enter a human vessel, and once they have completed the task, then lead an individual. Well, they don't tend to walk in. What they tend to do is create a body of energy which is good enough to be able to experience the environment they're in. It wouldn't necessarily mean that it's a fully blown human incarnate vehicle. Yeah. So it could be like something which is just about perceptible to us, but it's nevertheless of a low enough frequency for that entity to be able to experience the modifications it's made, and therefore judge them as being okay. So yes, that's right. Yes, our concepts colour our perceptions without doubt. So whatever we've got as a concept is used as a translation medium. Okay. So very quickly, I think Chris is saying something about I'm trying to articulate into a song how two event spaces were created where Christ was crucified and escaped at the same time in another event space. This is in the Origin Speaks. In another event space, can you help me make a rhyme, please? We'll look at that later. Okay, let's have a look. 4. Do angels and other maintenance entities like nature spirits also exist as true energetic selves? Yes, even though they are not incarnate or ensouled like we are. Where are their true energetic selves located in the multiverse? Everything has a true energetic self, a Godhead, an Oversoul, or a higher self. All of those words describe one thing: the body of sentient energy that is us in the higher sense. And that means not the aspect that's incarnate in the body of Guy Needler, or the body of Mo Stevens, or the body of R.J. Spooner, or the body of William Polas. It is the bigger bit where the energy is projected out from that is the true energetic self. And so maintenance entities are either operating as a true energetic self without any projections, or they use those projections to allow them to do various different roles. And some of those projections might well be construed as one of those deities that we've identified before, either a power or virtue, or an archangel, or a dominion, for instance. And so it's a function of how the true energetic self wants to divide itself up to allow it to be able to do the work it has agreed to do in the maintenance of, or the work with, the continued evolutionary efficiency of the environment that we evolve through as incarnate beings, or beings that have used some part of ourselves to incarnate into the lower frequencies of the physical universe to assist in our own evolutionary growth. So basically, they do exist as true energetic selves, or parts of, or aspects of, and they are. The location of their true energetic selves is not actually specifically within the multiverse. They tend to operate sort of outside the multiverse, in the gaps in between the structure, if you want to call it that. They move in and out of it. They work with it when they need to, and so they can move into it to experience the changes they've made, or they can work on the outside of it. And it's an interesting question, that part, because it's difficult to explain that entities work with a structure that is only maintained by ourselves. And so really what they're doing is they're working with our higher selves to make sure that we are still focused on some part of the structure that we want to maintain. And so that's the way that the maintenance of the structure is maintained. And we act like a continuous memory set for the continuous existence of the environment that we're working within and that we are experiencing as well. And so the true energetic selves, or the aspects of the true energetic selves that are used by those entities, those true energetic selves that want to go into service in this way, exist within and without. They don't stay within the function of the multiverse, because they're outside of the evolutionary cycle, so they have to exist without it. Within and without it is a good way of saying it. There's an extra part of this question here. Do we stay in the same true energetic self through many evolutionary cycles, or can we switch tesses? We are the tess. We are a function of the tess. It's what the true energetic self is, a body of energy that has been either given or been commandeered by a sentience. We are sentience. We are pure sentience, and we are either given a body of energy by our Creator, or we commandeer a body of energy. And so the answer to that question is quite a deep one. We can switch energies as sentient beings. So the sentient energy that could be construed as being one particular true energetic self might change if that particular sentience has decided that that body of energy is no longer relevant for its use or for what it's trying to achieve, and so it can move around. The moving around usually happens as a function of a change in an evolutionary cycle. And so when this particular evolutionary cycle finishes and all true energetic cells return to source, they can either choose to go into full communion or any of the 5 different forms of partial communion. And in the partial communion, they would decide to keep, if they decided to, a certain part of their energies, if they wish, or they can dissolve those energies within source and distribute their sentience accordingly. Noting, however, that the sentience that is the true energetic self is in fact a smaller part of the sentience that is source. And it's an individualized unit of source entity sentience that is allowed to hide itself or habitat itself, house itself in a body of energies that he's going to use to work with the environment that is based upon the energetic. Okay, so we would change after the cycle, or just before a cycle. It's probably a better way of saying it. And this is the breathing. It's interesting because there's a lecture I did in Santa Fe at a friend's house a couple of years ago, where we talked about, maybe last year actually, the breathing in and the breathing out of the universe, or the multiverse, from the Hindu sense. And the breathing in of the universe is when all of the entities that have entered into the evolutionary cycle have finished that evolutionary cycle, and they all start to coalesce back in source, including the source reuses the energies that it used to create the multiversal environment. It then disassociates its own sentience from those energies that it uses as its body of energies, and moves into a different location within the origin, recommandeers energies which will have a slightly different flavour to them, so to speak, and then recreates an environment in whichever way it wants to, and therefore separates itself out again, either creating new or reusing existing individualised units of its own sentience, assigning them with a body of energy, and then allowing them to choose what they want to do, whether it's to enter back into the evolutionary cycle or be of service to those who enter into the evolutionary cycle. And so there's expanding back out into this body of energy, into these energies that the source moves into, and another part of the origin is the breathing out. The breathing in being the end of the evolutionary cycle, where everything is brought back into the source. The source then moves its sentience to another part of the origin, recreates another environment, and repopulates it. That's the breathing out, and this happens quite regularly. However, I'll say quite regularly. We're on the third evolutionary cycle, to my understanding, so it's not that regular. So it does happen. Okay, that's the explanation that I've got, which correlates with the Hindu text. That's in the book The Origin Speaks. Right, what's the next particular question, if there is one? Okay. Right. It's a quick personal question, this is, and with others' permission, I'm going to just mention it. She said she's been feeling dizzy since yesterday. Is it the intense solstice energies coming in, or is it just me? Sick or adjusting to frequency or something? Right. Now then, we are experiencing a slight downturn, a slight evolutionary downturn, and people who are high frequency have been experiencing, let's say, bodily pain, where they're having to get used to the lower frequencies that they've moved away from. And so, in essence, we are struggling a bit. Everybody's struggling a bit. Those people, those incarnate people who were previously starting to become exposed to the higher thought processes associated with being higher frequencies, are moving back into being fully immersed human beings. And those of us who are, for want of a better word, of a higher frequential state, are moving down the frequencies a bit, and therefore we're struggling because our bodies have been used to being lighter in energy, and so we do struggle a bit. And so things like dizziness, no, it's not a mini stroke, no. So things like dizziness, things like joint pains, things like muscle aches, things like being out of breath, all of these different things are all part of it. We will be moving back up the frequencies again, but this is like although we're moving in a general movement upwards to the frequencies, we do get like a little sawtooth effect, where we go up and down in very short and small movements upwards and movement downwards, with the average being generally up. But what's happening is that we've experienced a lower than normal movement downward. Part of that being some other things that are happening in the world, where we've been having problems with problems with the Ukraine, problems with Syria, other problems around the world as well, and it's sort of dragging us down a little bit. So there's quite a few of us are struggling with it as well. So it is difficult. Yeah, migrant crisis. Basically, these individuals who are part of the migrant crisis are, shall I say, very brave souls, because they've elected to, what's the best way of saying it, to put themselves in a state of uncertainty, to allow the rest of the world to see how this part of the world is operating. And as a result of that, it's showing us that not every part of the world is operating at a high level. And so we're all starting to think that this needs to end, and that everybody in the world should be existing in the same level of personal safety, career progression, personal progression, spiritual progression, and shall I say, living in a nice house with nice gardens and those sorts of things. So we should all be living in the same level of material wealth, so to speak. And some of these things that are happening now are showing us that not everybody's doing that. And so these brave souls are putting themselves in a state of instability and danger, to alert the rest of the world, so we can all start to think, and we are all starting to think, that this is unacceptable. And in thinking it's unacceptable, we send energies to that area that allow it to be lifted above their base frequential state, which will be a locally low frequential state, and that therefore creates a triangulation effect where those individuals who are creating the problem start to see that they shouldn't be creating a problem, and eventually they stop it, and eventually they start to work for a greater good. But it does take time. But all of this stuff is designed to make us work together and be of service. And it's a very difficult thing to do when we are struggling to exist in our own right. And I'm not saying most people in the Western world are struggling right now. They were very, very rich. But in terms of when our governments are spending lots of money on providing different healthcare services, different schooling services, different infrastructure services, to be able to provide care and counsel and homing for people who are struggling. And it's also an opportunity for us to think in terms of being of service by allowing these people into our countries and helping them wherever we can. So it's also an opportunity for us to operate in a higher sense as well. So it's all part of that thing. It's all part of us recognising that everybody should be treated equally. We should all be helping them. We should all be helping everybody else be of the same level of material and spiritual existence as well. Right. Okay. I'm just going to very quickly look at the text that Morella's doing, and then we're going to go into meditation. Because this is a nice meditation, and it's going to be interesting to see your responses to it. And I'm also going to save that document, this very old dissertation, which is about as I'm not going to say how good it is, but it's not on the same level of stuff I'm working on now. There's no ego in it, definitely. Okay, but it'll be good for you to look at. It just identifies certain things. Mirella's saying there's been a lot of talk about supposedly very strong energies hitting the Earth at the end of September. Any thoughts? Well, that's effectively what others just mentioned, like the solstice energies. We do get bombarded by certain energies as a result of the way the planets are aligned, gravitational effects, magnetic effects, and we also get affected by some of the magnetic, and the solar radiation effects, but from the sun, certainly with sunspots and things. Yeah, the equinox is one, and so we are affected in that way as well. So there's a little bit of that as well happening to people. But my understanding is that isn't the major thing that's happening around us. Yeah, 20th of September, in approximately 9 days' time. So it's there's physical. I don't. This is my own personal experience. I don't see much credence in physical things affecting us as spiritual individuals too deeply. It's mostly to do with the energetic side of things. And as everything is energetic anyway, you could argue that the energies coming through from some of these planetary alignments are also affecting us. So they will have an effect, but not the same profound level of effect that we're experiencing as a result of having a downward shift in our frequential ascension. Okay, well, I hope that's answered that question. I'm just going to look at this meditation now. Are you all happy to go to the meditation? Did that answer your question, Mirella? By the way, and Mirella? Quick yes or no. Very good. Oh, good. Okay. Right. We're more physically. We're more resilient than we give ourselves credit for. By the way, or energetically, we're more resilient is another word. But when it comes to frequential stuff, or ascension or descension, we're much more sensitive. If that makes any sense. Okay, so this meditation now is designed to get us in contact with our true energetic self, not source. Okay, this is direct contact with our true energetic self, and although we've already done our hour, this may take anything between 10 and 20 minutes, depending upon how fast we go. Okay, so what I want you to do is to get yourself in your meditation posture that you prefer. That you're all good students, you've done this before. I prefer to, generally these days, I prefer to sit down in like a cross-legged position, but I'm sitting in my chair right now. So my straight back chair is where I am now, so my feet are flat on the ground, my back is straight, my hands are placed palm uppermost on my thighs, and my closed eye vision is focused upon the origin of my spiritual or third eye, which is in between the two eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And we're just going to calm ourselves down a moment. You can do this at any time, at home or at work, or finding a quiet place or somewhere in the countryside or whatever. You can there's no particular limitations as to when and where you can do this, but it does require a certain amount of introspective work. Okay, so some of you might prefer this lying down, having a think, and if you are lying down, this is the supine method of meditation. And if you are lying down, make sure that your legs are not touching and your arms are not touching your legs or your body, okay? And that your head is well supported on a pillow. You don't have any shoes and socks on, and you might want to be less densely populated with your clothing as well. So you've got plenty of, but keep warm. So you've got plenty of freedom and nothing to distract you. And what I want you to do now is to bring your consciousness in towards your body. Just visualize this moving in through the spiritual or third eye. We tend to look out of our eyes, we tend to associate our focus through the eyes. So let's go through the third eye to come back into the body. And I want you to do a quick systems check. And by that I mean just check that you can put your consciousness down to your feet, down to your fingertips, to your wrists, to your palms, to your shoulders, to your neck, to your head, to your calves, to your thighs, to your knees, to your hips again, forearms, upper arms, stomach, lungs, heart, kidneys, liver, bowels, every part of your body. Just do a quick systems check that you can touch base with it with your consciousness. Now what I want you to do is to mentally state or visualize that even though we're about to do what we're going to do, which is remove the energy from the body, that the human body itself will stay animated. Okay? Without the energies within the body, it doesn't remain animated. So it's just a quick level of intention to ensure that your body stays functional. It will always stay functional, but it's just something you need to do yourselves, just to give yourselves confidence. The body will stay functional after my consciousness moves out of it. Those sort of words you can use. And then I want you to start to feel that you're pulling your energy in from the external extremities of your body. In from your toes to the balls of your feet, from the balls of your feet to your heels, from your heels to your ankles, from your ankles up towards your knees, from your knees up towards your hips. Okay? And that energy moves up towards the Tantien, which is this area that is 3 inches above, or 75 millimeters above the navel or belly button, and is 3 inches or 75 millimeters in towards the spine from the belly button. And now I want you to do the same thing with the energy in your fingers. Okay? Let's bring in the feeling of beingness from the fingertips to the knuckles, to the palms, to the wrist, to the elbows, to the shoulders, and in towards the neck. And then bring the energies from the head also down past the forehead, past the eyes, past the nose, past the mouth, to the neck again. And that the energies that were in the shoulders and therefore those energies that were in the head and the neck coalesce together and go down towards the Tantien. Now then, normally when the energies moved out of the body, it also moved the energy associated with the soul seat. The soul seat is the area where the sentience, our beingness, what we are, settles. It settles in an area which is just behind the heart chakra. Okay? Just behind the front heart chakra. Because we want to maintain our body, keep it sentient, keep it active, keep it animated, we're going to leave the soul seat where it is. So move all of the energy that we had from the lower and upper bodies in towards the Tantien. And also move the energies associated with the lungs and the heart and the kidneys and the liver and the bowel, also into this Tantien. The Tantien is like a ball of golden, ready golden energy, which is 3 inches above the navel and 3 inches in from that point, 3 inches above the navel, in towards the centre of the body. Okay. Now then, this is the distribution point of our sentience, where we incarnate into the physical form. From here, there is something called the Hara line. It comes down from the true energetic self, down through the step-down functions of the 10th, 9th and 8th frequencies, and then starts to enter into the body at a point just about round where the crown chakra is, comes down towards the Tantien, splits out to to the left and right by the pelvis and goes down the left and right legs down towards the ground. It is the hara line, which is in essence a little energy vortex, a little tube or hose that protects the energies that are projected into the physical, that are projected into the human form, and stops them being affected by the lower frequencies that the human form is working within, the human vehicle is working within. And so from here, at this tantien, this orangey, golden orangey and ready ball, called a tantien, the hara line moves up towards the body. So move your sentience into this tantien and then see, or use your mentally spoken words, this little energetic tube, like a straw, that goes up from the tantien, up to the centre of the body and exits the body in a similar place to the crown chakra. And then disappears upwards. So move your sentience into your sentience or your focus of beingness into this tantien and move it up inside this little energy vortex, up the tube, going further and further up. You go past the upper chest, past the neck, past the head, out the top of the head, and you move upwards and upwards and upwards in frequency, not in location, up towards the true energetic self. So your sentience looks or feels like it's going through a tunnel. You go through this tunnel is this vortex of energy, that's the hara line. Moving further and further and further up, until you get to a point where the hara line is not necessary, and in front of you see this huge iridescent ball of energy. This huge iridescent ball of energy is your true energetic self. It's a ball of energy that is commandeered or given to a body of sentience, an individualized unit of source entity sentience, which is what we are. This is our higher self, our Godhead, our Oversoul. If you wish, you can move, you see another energy line, not specifically a tube, but the energy line is the energy line that connects you as the aspect to the true energetic self. So in between yourself and this huge ball of energy is this other little vortex of energy. This is not the same as the silver cord that people witness when they are astral travelling. That's something else. Okay? And so if you wish, you can move up towards this ball of iridescent, pulsating, radiating light that is your true energetic self, and just move into it for a moment. Feel the difference in the energetic state. If you're connected properly, you'll start to feel expansive. You may even get to experience different levels of states of knowingness, higher states of beingness. A feeling of being in all places at once. A feeling of knowing all things simultaneously. A feeling of experiencing lots of different experiences simultaneously, but as one. A feeling of communion. So I'll just leave you there for a moment, a few minutes, just to experience it. Be your true energetic self, an aspect that has returned into communion. Not full communion, this is a temporary state of partial communion. But nevertheless, it's a different state of beingness than you have experienced before. Feel the communion, feel the love, feel the beingness, feel the expansiveness, feel the knowingness, the omniscience, the omnipresence. Note how big you feel. You are much bigger in feeling than your physical form, your temporary vehicle that you use to experience low frequency existence here on Earth. You are in communion, temporary partial communion, because you're maintaining your individual status and an individualized aspect of your true energetic self. But right now, it's a little bit like you're in the condition you may choose to be in between incarnations. Be in this state of beingness. We'll stay here just for a couple more minutes longer, so I'm going to leave you for 2 minutes just to enjoy this state. Okay, so start to think about moving your sentience outside of this huge ball of sentient energy. This is your true energetic self. Moving outside of it, becoming the externalized, projected aspect that you are. Move down towards your physical vehicle. Notice that the hara starts to become visible. Shrink yourself down so that you can move into this little vortex, this little tube, this little tunnel. That is the methodology of protecting your sentience from lower frequency existence whilst incarnate. Move yourself into it and move down the frequencies from wherever you were with your true energetic self, down towards those higher frequencies associated with the incarnate vehicle that we use to experience existence here. Moving down through those energies that are the step down function, the 10th and the 9th and the 8th frequencies. Lower and lower in the frequencies, and then visualize your energies moving down this high line and going down into the top of the crown of the head, in the location close to the crown chakra. Moving down towards the Tantien by moving past the eyes and past the mouth and past the neck, past the upper chest, past the lower chest, and settling now back down this reddy golden ball of energy. This is the Tantien, the area where the energies that are our sentient energies start to be distributed back towards the rest of the vehicle that we call our human body. And so the sentient energies, our self, move out of the Tantien. Some of it moves down towards the hips, some of it moves up towards the shoulders. That which moved down towards the hips starts to move down from the hips down to the upper legs, the thighs, down to the knees, down to the calves, and the ankles, the heels, the balls of the feet and the toes. So we start to feel our lower body. The energy that was at the shoulder splits into two. One part stays where it is, but the others move down towards populating energy associated with the bowel and the colon and the liver and the kidneys and the heart and the lungs. And then repopulating the shoulders with energy and the upper arms and the elbows and the forearms and the wrists and the palms of our hands and the knuckles and our fingers. So we start to feel all the energy back into our fingers and our arms and our body. And the rest of the energy that was left behind on tops of the shoulders moves up to the neck, up past the jaw, the nose, the eyes, and back into the area above the forehead. So the energy associated with what we are is now populating the head as well. So every part of our human form has sentient energy redistributed about it using the chakras, the minor, the mini and the major chakras, energizing the muscles, energizing the organs to make it animate. And so very slowly open your eyes, and if you've got chance you can take a drink of water or a drink of liquid, preferably not alcoholic. Okay, and come back into the room. And that's a method you can use. You can take longer if you wish. Just make sure that you use your intention to come back down, to be able to commune both sentiently and energetically with your true energetic self. Sometimes called the Godhead, sometimes called the Oversoul, sometimes called the Higher Self. Okay. Is everybody okay? Chris, are you okay? Send text types you want to. Yvonne, are you okay? RJ, are you okay? Morella, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Mo and Jeremy, are you okay? Ulla, are you okay? And Bill, are you okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good, excellent. I feel everybody's down, which is good. Right, okay. Now, a couple of announcements while you're getting yourselves back into your bodies. First thing is that today I finished the 6th book, not the Origin Speaks, the Aim Dialogues. Almost got that wrong, which is a real boost for me because it's quite a document. It really goes into what we are and how we incarnate. I've got the the video of the lecture that I gave at the Ozark Mountain Publishing Transformation Conference this year in July. I'm seeking permission to put onto YouTube. If I do, I shall send out via blog and to you all a link to the YouTube video. It'll also be on the website as well, on the lectures part. I've not got permission yet, so we'll have to wait for that. So that'll be available. The slides for it will be in the back of the And Dialogues book, and it's I'm really pleased it's finished now, because it's been quite a ride, I'll tell you. The other thing is, I'm off to China as of Thursday this week. I'm doing some workshops in China, and after that I'm having a month off, a total sabbatical for a bit. So I'm basically shutting down, although the website will still be there, things like doing readings and healings will be shut down, and taking emails will be shut down. So I'm going off grid for a month basically. I'll be back in action on the 9th of November. So that means there won't be a Satsanga in October, but there will be one. Let's have a quick look at my diary and just check the times and dates and stuff. It's looking like it's going to be the third weekend in November. Right, myself there. Let's go on to month. So we're looking like it's going to be okay. The 21st of November will be the next. The 21st of November will be the next Satsanga, because I'm having a month sabbatical. I'm going to Greece as well for a bit, so I'm going to be totally off grid. This is brilliant. Okay, so it'll give you a break from me as well. Fantastic. So okay, so I'll send this recording out as normal via blog and via emails to you. I'll also create a PDF file of that rather old and dated dissertation I did, which is more sort of based upon human facts rather than or facts or information rather than channeled information. And yeah, I'll send that stuff to you all. So send the PDF of Angels and the Pyramid Dancer. Right, I'll have to look at that one. Yeah, the Pyramid Dancer in the book. Oh right, okay. Is that the one you've given to me, Ola? Or the one I did as part of the forum?
It was part of the previous Satsanga. You said you had an answer to somebody about the pyramid, and that you would email him about it.
Ah, did, yes. Good, well reminded. Right, okay. What I'll do is I will send that out as a PDF file. I'll have to look for that. I know who it is as well. It's only a short answer, but I'll send that out to you as well as a small PDF file. Okay. Well, thank you everybody. Thank you for reminding me of that other as well. And looking forward to meeting up in November with me being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and full of energy. Okay. Thank you everybody. Thank you, Ola.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mirella. Thank you, RJ.
Bye.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Jeremy and Mo. And thank you, Chris. And thank you to all those who dialed in but had to leave early. Thank you, everybody. Have a great morning, day, evening and afternoon. And love to you all, and look forward to seeing you in November. Thank you.
Did you see the aliens in Crete?